And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Alright, today we're talking about Riches and Rascals, which is a collapsing box. Apparently it's part of the features of it, in which you use these, wow, really cool treasure chests, which I have to say were a real pain to open, but eventually we got them open, and sail around throughout history trying to accumulate and sell and trade treasure. Now this game has some very interesting ideas, although I'm not sure that they were all well put into the game or thought out. Has some neat components, and there's, again, this is almost the sort of game that I would say, hey, look at this neat game that I have, and then someone says, well, let's play it. I'm like, well, you know, it's not really as good as it looks. Let's take a look at the game, and I'll show you what I mean. The game takes place in a map of the whole world. Yes, the whole world. Look, all the way over here in the corner, I can see the Americas. Yay! But mostly it's about the old world. And to start the game, you actually have to put out tokens on top of all these pictures on the board, which is, well, I mean, it's neat, and they match exactly. I mean, if you look at that token that I just placed, I mean, it fits there with the picture and everything, but it is kind of a pain to put them all on the board, and I'm not going to do it now to show you where they all go. But there are some bigger tokens to show some great achievements throughout history. Those are a little easier to put out, and those are put in different places all over the board, depending on what the achievement is and where it happened in history. And I will say that the game is historical in the sense that it shows you where many of these developments occurred. You learn a lot about the different areas, and I would say that definitely this game was meant to be historical in nature. So what players are doing is they are taking things from this little piece case that comes. Now look at this. This is pretty neat. It's a little container. I use these all the time to keep my components in my game. And there's 4 different types of trading goods. We have gold, and then there are denominations of 1 and 10. And the 10s are just a little bit bigger than the 1s, but what do you do? It doesn't really matter since you only count them up at the end of the game. Then we have logs here, and then we have diamonds. Ooh, those are pretty cool. And then we have amber. And then we have ships for each of the characters, which will carry your goods, and 2 dice. One of them is simply a 6-sided die. The other one is a 6-sided die with a scroll on 2 of the sides. Each player will start their ship on their home port, and you start with 5 goods of your type. Each of the 4 regions, Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia, has a resource that is close to home for you. So, for example, Africa, their resource of choice is gold. That's what they will be trading other people. Europe uses amber, Middle East uses the cedar logs, and Asia uses diamonds. So after you do that, everyone starts. On your turn, you will roll both dice. Whatever number you roll, that's exactly how far you must move on these spaces, 1, 2, 3, and you have a choice of where you go. The only exception to that is if you are away from a port and you roll higher than what you need to get to that port, you can simply just go to the port. If you land on another player, you have taken all their stuff. You plunder them. Ha 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 ha. If you land on a port, you can trade at that port. Trading is simply a 2-to-1 basis. So, say for example, here I brought 4 of my gold bars to Asia. I would trade those 4 gold bars for 8 diamonds. Now, I don't have to take those diamonds. I can take those to another port and trade those for 2-to-1. And continue trading 2 for 1 until someone pirates me. But if I want to, I can always go back to my home port, and at that point, I would simply take everything I had collected at that point and throw it into my treasure chest. Once it's in there, it's safe. Now, as a player goes, they will also oftentimes roll a scroll. Because it is on 1/3 of all die rolls, you're going to get that scroll. And in that case, you will refer to this book here, which is the History Scrolls. The first time someone rolls the scroll, you will open to the first page of this. And there are 4 different markers here: Africa, Europe, Middle East, Asia. Each is a different color. Wherever your ship is, that's the color of the one you read. Most of the time, it will say something like, pick up one of the tokens that's in your area. And so, let's say, for example, you pick up the woolly mammoth token. And on the back of that, it's +8. You put that in your boat, and once you get home, that's your token. There's also tokens that are worth negative points, so you have to keep an eye out for that. Sometimes, for example, on page 1 here, if you had been in Africa and you got the first event, your loot in your boat would be doubled. And sometimes your loot goes away. Now, as you turn these pages, it's basically going throughout history. But every once in a while, instead of there being 4 choices, there's just one. This shows Middle East. The wheel has been invented. Whoever is the closest to the Middle Eastern port will get the wheel token. Middle East. Wheel token, which is worth 20 points at the end of the game. Not the person who's rolling the dice. And so there's a chart at the bottom of the board which shows you the progression of which major things are discovered. So if you know you're getting close to maybe, let's say, when the wheel is going to be invented, then you might make sure that you're as close to the Middle Eastern port as possible. You're also safe from other players landing on you and stealing your stuff while in ports. And so the game continues until you get to the last page of the book, and the Black Plague strikes, or the Dark Ages begin. And at that point, everyone counts up all the jewels that they have collected plus all their tokens. Now, jewels are worth different amounts depending on what player you are. As you can see, as this chart shows you here. Asia people, the amber's worth more to them because it's all the way in Europe to get it. Those are worth 3 points each, while diamonds, which are from Asia, are worth 1 point. It's easier for the Middle East and Africa to go back and forth, so their home product is worth 1, every other product is worth 2. And you count up all your points, and whoever has the most points is the winner. Alright, there's a lot to talk about in this game, but let me just make a few of the points. Some people are not going to like the fact that it's a roll and move game, that you're rolling dice and you move and you're at the whim of those. I can live with that because you have a choice of which way to go. And I do wish the die maybe it wasn't a 1 through 6, because it's kind of annoying if you roll 1 3 turns in a row and the other guy rolls 6, 5, 6 and he's moving back and forth. I'm still not convinced. In fact, I'm pretty sure that I'm correct about that the economic model of doubling your resources when you go to a port is not a good idea. Because this is what's going to happen. In games where people are gaming, well, in every game I play, you go to a port, you double it. You go to another port, you double it. And you keep going. After a while, it's getting kind of annoying to count out 256 jewels to double something. You say, well, yeah, but you do that, someone else might pirate you, and they'll have all those jewels. Yes, that's true. But someone who's gaming is going to risk that. And when that happens, that kind of breaks the game, because either that person's going to win or the person who pirates him is going to win. And that kind of degenerates it. If I was playing, I would put a cap, like you can't have more than 40 resources in a boat. That would cause people to have to go back to their home port. The historical nature of going through and reading the different events, good. The different tokens, very random. I mean, some are positive, some are negative, and rolling the dice is random. There's a lot of randomness in the game. The idea of trading, the artwork itself, the presentation of the game with these treasure chests, very good. But it seems more like a good idea than a game that actually works. And so while I have, again, great respect for the idea, I like the components, I like the idea of flipping through the book to find the next thing to go to, it just doesn't work as a game. And I think it might be more useful as a teaching tool, something in schools where you can play and the kids are learning, but at the same time they're saying, ooh, I can go trade resources. This is fun. This is not the same old boring thing. So as an educator's tool that borders on being a game, this is what I would recommend. But if you're looking for a fun game to play, nice bits, but just not enough substance.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.